unser dritter Speaker, ein bisschen weiter weg von Freiburg. Manuel Cianci von Selective mit dem Titel von seiner Präsentation How to Secure Your Application and Maximize the Benefits of a Penetration Test in DevSecOps. Donc je pense que ça va être un discours plutôt un peu de l'autre côté, le dark side, hein, penetration test. Hein. Donc là maintenant on a vu comment il faut se protéger et puis là peut-être on verra un petit peu comment on casse tout ça. Donc Manuel Cianci, Managing Partner und Security Architect bei Selective, OSCP, Offensive Security Certified Professional. Il a aussi son bachelor fait, malheureusement pas ici, à Lucerne, voilà, on l'accepte quand même. Hat zu Luzern studiert, aber er darf gleich hier sein. Hat über einen anderen Weg als die anderen beiden zur Informatik gefunden, über eine kaufmännische Lehre. Hein. Il a trouvé un chemin un peu pas direct, hein. Il a fait un apprentissage d'abord comme apprentissage de commerce, ouais, chez Swisscom. Et puis il a aussi beaucoup travaillé chez Swisscom, hein, dans différents endroits avant qu'il ait passé chez Selective. Donc,
perfect. All right.
It's yours, the stage.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here today. As already mentioned, Manuel Cianci is my name. I'm from Selective. We are an offensive security service company. We don't develop applications ourselves, but I can share a bit of my experience, what we encounter when testing application, who most of the time or many times are developed in a DevSecOps fashion. I will quickly give an introduction about myself and the company, then a brief introduction, short, what is penetration testing and when to do it. I will show you how to secure your applications in the DevSecOps cycle, which you already seen before, some points there, of course. And I want to focus also on the collaboration. So if you are developing in an agile method and you are building applications and you have a pen testing coming up, how to collaborate with a pen testing company so the process works as smooth as possible and you can profit the most out of it, not just from the report and the findings, but you can even take some other actions there. To have also some practical parts in the presentation, I will show and share some selected findings which we encountered during our last 2 years. And I will conclude with some takeaways. So about us, was already done a nice introduction by Mike, thanks. I have a background as a software engineer, moved to security, and then more to the management side of stuff. At the moment, since 2 years roughly, I'm at Selective. I'm working as a managing partner, but also doing customer assignments myself. Before I worked at Swisscom as a software engineer and then moved on to the security consulting and also engineering area. And the last position there, I took over the team and had the title of head of security delivery, which was the internal security, one of the internal security teams at Swisscom. There, with other colleagues, some sitting here as well, we created the DevSecOps methodology, how Swisscom is working, in how Swisscom is doing security in their agile way of working. Security is a big passion of mine, so it also, in my private life, I do CTFs and do research myself as well, so I'm very passionate about the topic. Selective, quick introduction about the company. So it was founded in 2013 by Sophus Siegenthaler. He's the founder and the second managing partner of the company. We are privately held and we see ourselves as a security boutique, so focusing on the spirit, on the mindset of the company and the excellent quality delivering to the customers. We mainly focus on the offensive security part, but of course we also do other kind of services. But like the mindset and the heart of the team is really like the offensive mindset. They know how malicious actors are acting and working, and we do the same stuff, but with permission, of course. Therefore, we have a highly technical expertise. We also do contribution to the community in sponsoring events, hosting our own events, or just doing research and publishing blog posts or open source software and tools as well. As I mentioned already, Sophus Siegenthaler, he's the founder of the company and the managing partner, and myself. And as also briefly mentioned before, we are steering the company, of course, but we are also doing technical customer assignments ourselves. Mostly not penetration tests anymore, because like we have engineers who are better over time doing that job than we are, but we do still security assignments like more high-level stuff in consulting, threat modeling, etc. We have 2 offices. The main office is in Bern, near Europaplatz, where we sit together typically like 2 to 3 times a week together, and otherwise we are working mostly remote. Second office is in Lucerne, but most of the time we are to be found in Bern. So if you're close by and want to have a coffee, beer, or snacks and talk about security, just hit us up. So, penetration testing. Quick definition, or to show you what pen testing actually is. Right, jokes aside. So the definition of a pen test is like to have a simulated cyber attack against a system, an application, or a network. And the objective is very clear, so you want to identify vulnerabilities before a malicious actor does it. It's a way of ethical hacking, so as I mentioned before, we all are ourselves, we are all seeing us as hackers, but we have the permission to do it. We know how the malicious parties are working. We also do our own scripts, etc. But we do it with permission, with consent. Penetration testing brings a comprehensive view. Of course, it uncovers weaknesses in your applications, but that's not all. So most of the time, we also have like deep insights across technology, processes, and people. So when we have a debriefing meeting with a client, we often also have other findings which involve other parties or processes, and it goes much more than just to have like a technical vulnerability in a given system. And penetration test comes typically in different flavors. You have the black box pen test, gray box, or the white box pen test, and the only difference is like how many information or how much information you share with the pen tester. Whereas white box pen tester, you typically share source code or configuration files and open up everything the pen tester needs. Red-purple teaming is more, or it's not just about finding vulnerabilities, it's also like to test the blue team capabilities of a company to see like how fast they react, how fast they detect an actual breach or an attack. From the pen testing perspective, from the pen testing company perspective, I always recommend to my customers to share as much information as possible. So if you have intellectual property of the source code, share this with the penetration tester because you want to test your application as best as possible. Because with insights to configurations and source code, the pen tester doesn't need to enumerate himself and by trial and error. He can read the source code and verify if there are already safeguards in place, if you have done input validation or not, and then he will be much faster and the result will be of better quality, of course. Why is pen testing important? So mentioned before already, like to live the proactive security. So you find and you identify and fix the vulnerabilities before somebody else will do it, a malicious party mostly. In some businesses you have regulatory compliances, so finance or the health industry, for example, where you need to do it on a regular basis. We heard it before from Manuel about trust and reputation. We have many customers asking us in the end to give them an attestation, a written confirmation that they did a pen test without any details, of course, but they want to hand this over to their stakeholders, investors, or even customers to build trust for their applications. You have an evolving threat landscape and an evolving application landscape. That means you also need to test your stack or your applications for new kind of vulnerabilities or new kind of software you have deployed. Number 5, reduce cost. Of course, if you detect a pen test, it will be cheaper than if you have a breach, but I wouldn't put the pen test as the most cost-effective point to do security. I mean, we heard it before, and I will come to that later. The earlier you identify a vulnerability, the less cost you will have. And in the DevSecOps cycle, you have many places, or you should do security all the time. So if you detect security flaws earlier in the process, even before the pen test, it will be much cheaper because you don't have to restructure your application. You don't need to fix the code. You can do it right away, right? Education, this is the first time where I want to mention how important I think threat modeling is. We heard it before. So the pen testing and discussing the results with the customers opens a view of the attacker perspective to the engineers and the project team. And I think that is very, very important that someone who is building something, or it's not just the engineers or somebody who is building an application, it's basically everyone at his daily job should always think about what could go wrong. So he already thinks about how to implement a given fix, and the application will be much more secure in that way. Risk management. So a pen test gives you a clear picture of the current security posture. It tells you like where do you have flaws which can be exploited. If you cannot fix it right away, you need to put it into the risk management and see like how you want to address it on a company level, the points. Very quickly about pen test, then the next point I would like to show you is how to secure your application. You all know this picture right now. I took different colors, so it's a bit a new way. Here, I'm from a penetration testing company who attacks the applications and the system, so we are not building an application, and I cannot talk that much in detail like the colleagues before did of the single points. What I would like to focus here and mention is like to stay practical, and it is very important to tackle security from different angles. Always go for a multi-layered approach. Don't rely on one system or one methodology to keep your system safe, because one can fail or miss something and then another one comes into place. That's what we see in the applications we are testing. When they have multiple layers, then our pen testers will have a hard time doing their job. Here again, in the beginning, on top, we can see the threat modeling. I will just quickly mention it once again. From our perspective, there are two ways of doing threat modeling. There is the first one, which is the structured way. Manuel mentioned the STRIDE methodology. We also use that. We do that with clients also on an assignment, for example. That's really when you think in a structured way, what could go wrong. You draw the drawings, do trust boundaries, etc. But then the one which is at least the same, has the same importance, is the unstructured threat modeling I mentioned before. So make your engineers or your employees aware of like how an attacker targets your systems, what can go wrong. Show them the attacker perspective so they can learn what could go wrong and how to fix or how to implement like security measures already in the beginning. Then we of course have during the development of an application, we have different measures, and there are many more security points and tools and measures you can put there. I just took from my experience the most relevant which you can integrate. But there is the static application security testing, short SAST, and the dynamic application security testing test, which you can automate to test your application, your source code for vulnerabilities even before they are deployed into your systems. So that's something you should evaluate and put into your DevSecOps cycle. Then the pen testing. Here, of course, we are talking about an agile working methodology, so you have constant releases and new features. You don't need to do pen testing all the time. That makes no sense and is not cost effective at all. But it is important to have a penetration test, to have like a security maturity. Typically, when you have never done it, it would be a good opportunity to do a pen test to get the first this baseline. And then afterwards, it makes more sense to repeat a pen test when you have like big architectural changes or over time when the application changed or have major things which changed. For the continuous testing, that's also important, but there you could rely on VDP or a bug bounty program where you have a constant stream of testers who are testing your new features which are coming in. And then in the operations and monitoring phase, of course, there are other things than just testing. You also need to react. We heard it before with the incident response and incident management topics. So it is important to have logging and to have relevant log files if something happens, that you can go back to the root cause and find out what happened, how it happened, and what happened afterwards. You should also have like a possibility to do virtual patching. We heard Log4j, and there are other 0 days where maybe there are no patches or it's not so simple to patch, so you need to have something in front that you can gain some time until you can patch all your systems behind. And then, of course, vulnerability management and security incident event management, to be triggered to get an alert and active when something happens, and then you can go back to the log files and to the root cause analysis. So to quickly recap here, there is no one single tool which helps you to protect your application or your stack fully. So you need to combine security from different angles and have different security safeguards in place, so one can take over if another fails. Collaboration, how to get the most out of a penetration test if you have one coming up or you plan to do one. So these are the phases, the typical phases of a pen test. I will explain them right when we go to the single point. So when starting, so after all the commercial stuff and the administrative stuff is set up, we will start doing our work typically with the reconnaissance phase, where the penetration test tries to enumerate the scope, tries to find like what services are there, etc. And here you will hear many times it is important, if possible, to share as many information with the pen tester as you can. So in the reconnaissance phase in the beginning, if you hand over to the pen tester already a list with domains, IPs, and inventory, he will be much faster to gain this overall picture. He doesn't need to scan everything on his own. Sorry. And for example, if you have domains which are not directly related to our company, it will be hard to a pen tester who has the outside view to make the connection to your company. It is possible, maybe sometimes not, but the more information you share, the more efficient he will be. Threat modeling, here again, it's not just like we are doing threat modelings typically after the reconnaissance phase, when we have like the picture of what we want to test. We will look for the path with the least resistance. So we will do a threat modeling and see like, okay, where can we get in? What safeguards do we see already? What would we try first? But to turn it around, like Manuel mentioned it before, many of you guys are doing threat modelings in a company yourself. So if you have a pen test coming up, share the threat model with the pen tester. The pen tester can, first of all, evaluate your threats. So he can check, are they exploitable? Not all of the threats there are typically exploitable in a pen test, but some of them are. So he can verify if they are as a risk or if they can be exploitable. And on the other hand, he will enrich your threat model with new threats you might not have thought about. The exploitation phase, then when we actually try to get foothold into a system or an application to break it, they're very important. We have to repeat this all the time in the technical walkthrough meetings right in front of the pen test. Do no deployments during a pen test. That's hard sometimes if you have like the DevSecOps cycle and you have automatic deployments, but the more stable the environment is, the more reliable the work of the pen tester can be. He will have problems if the features are changing constantly, and mostly if the features he is testing are changing, that will be a problem. Here again, the link to the white box pen test if possible. The more information you give him, the more in technical depth he can verify your safeguards and see if something is exploitable. So if a pen tester has a web interface to pen test and there is a user input, he can trial and error and just try the different payloads and see if something triggers and get from the error message what he's at. But if he has the source code, he can compare like what goes from the input field to where does it go, does it have already sanitization methods, what happens behind the front, right? So there he will be faster, even if he has to read through source code, but he will be more, the quality will also be higher. Then the post-exploitation, that's mainly most important, like more in red teaming or black box type of scenario. So you need to give some guard sometimes, like what happens if I reach this point? Can I go wherever? But it's really important to have a clear communication between the pen testing company and the project or the company, like how far should somebody go. In a white box pen test where we test an application, we typically, if we have foothold on a machine and we could execute commands and go further than to neighboring systems, we would have first a call with the customer and discuss this then ad hoc. In the report, just quickly, like the typical points which are in a report, from my perspective, it's very important not just to have like the finding itself and the measures, the mitigation measures, but it's also very important to deliver to the customers what actually was tested, what was in scope, what could be addressed, so the customer also has like a good feeling that the application was tested like in a methodical way, and you had addressed all the use cases which are necessary, not just deliver a pen testing report with some findings. If you have much findings, nobody will question you, but if you have less findings, it is really important to show them that you address the whole scope of the pen test. And one very important thing where you as a project team or as an application developer can profit is like if you already have knowledge of some points which are not good or have security flaws, you should not keep that from a penetration tester. He probably will find it, he should. But if you already know it, you can use the pen testing and the report to show that to the internal stakeholders that there is really a problem. We have many times we have discussions like, yeah, we have a problem, I know, but we never got the budget to fix it. But as soon as we put it in the report and put it in a management summary that there is a problem there and you should fix it, they got the budget, and 3 months later the vulnerability was fixed. So that's also a way how you can use a pen tester and the report to gain the traction you need if you have other hurdles internally. Retesting, again, white box approach if possible, so provide change log, diffs, changes. So the pen tester, typically a retesting of the findings is a small thing. If he has a source code, it will be even much faster. To also come a bit to the more practical thing, it is not directly related to DevSecOps, but I wanted to share some findings which we made the last, I think, 2 years since I'm at Selective, and some attempts, not all were successful, but you will see. So the first one here, race condition, we could create infinite money. That was a white box penetration test of an online shop. The online shop had a special way to, or a special category where you could buy vouchers and gift cards, and they had this concept of custom vouchers. The custom voucher is when you want to give a gift to somebody and you don't know exactly what he likes, so you just give him a custom voucher which has some amount of money on it. He can then exchange it for real gift cards for Amazon, Zalando, Google Play, whatsoever. And we found, or our tester found, a race condition in buying the custom vouchers, which allowed him to pay one and get two. And he could repeat that all the time, and then in the end he had a stack of custom vouchers, and he could exchange that for the real ones and get money from it. That was a fun fact there. We found this on a Friday afternoon, and we thought that the web shop was already deployed and online, so we made the decision to talk to the customer right away because it was critical, it was in the internet, anybody could register there and exploit it if they would find it. We called the lead engineer and we were a bit scared, like how would he react? It's Friday afternoon, 3, 4 o'clock, and then they probably need to fix it over the weekend. And they were really embracing it, and that was so cool to see. So we called the lead engineer, and he was calling, and he said, wait a moment, and then he was shouting into the office, and hey, the pen tester, they already broken everything, come, and everyone was listening on the speakerphone. It was cool to hear that they had this security mindset in the company. The second one, that was an attempt. It was not successful, but I wanted to show you a bit like what kind of thinking a pen tester is doing when doing his work. So we had a white box penetration test again. There's a website, security website. You could go to this website, or you probably still can go to this website, and the website offers a port scan to yourself. So you go there as a visitor, and the website has a button and says, scan my IP address, the public IP address, and I tell you what ports do you have exposed and what services are running on this port. So we were thinking like, okay, let's do the reverse attack. So we will host an application on our system which opens some ports towards the internet, and we will put some malicious code, and we try to do an injection in the version of the software which is running on our client. And you can see it on the picture there. We tried like SQL injection, command injection, cross-site scripting, and different things. And we tried to exploit that on the web interface of the web server. Unfortunately, it was not successful, but still, it was shared with the customer. That's something which we share also with the customer to show him what kind of tests we are doing, not always in that technical depth, but typically we tell them what did we try. And the last one, that was a very impactful one. That was we were tasked to do a pen test of management or of the customer's device management. So for the notebooks, every employee of this company had. It was a gray box penetration test as they bought this solution. It was not something they developed themselves, so we had access to architecture diagrams, solution designs, some configuration files, but no source code. And as you all know it, when you deploy or when you have a new laptop, you open it up and you do the first setup, then you typically see that there are like the black command line, the command interface is coming up and some scripts are executing. That also happened there. Typically as a user, you don't see the scripts. You maybe see that something is executing, but you don't see the details. But we were able to intercept the scripts. That's not a hard thing to do, but we looked at the scripts, and it was so we found credentials in one of the scripts, and we were looking a bit close at these credentials, and we found out that these were the credentials of a service account to the management platform for all the devices, and we had admin privileges with these credentials. So that means we could log into the management platform, managing all the customer devices and pushing whatever we wanted to all of these devices. So means we had remote code execution on basically all the company managed devices. that was also a call which we had to do, like before we had the official debriefing meeting with the customer. Yeah, I'm already at the end. Top 3 takeaways. The first one, do threat modeling all the time, do the structured ones. So you have like, as Manuel showed, you have a process and you think in a structured way about what could go wrong. And then think about the controls, but also do the unstructured threat models where you just have the mindset of thinking and how an attacker would act. Then the second one, like the combination of security measures is key. So have different security measures in place. Don't rely on one single tool. Use different tools, use processes. Teach the employees to do their, to take their responsibility. And if you have a multi-layered security approach, you are much more secure. And we can really see that in our pen tests. Typically, the customers who have multiple things in place, they are the ones who only have like minimal findings or not so impactful findings. And third point, make as much use of the pen test as possible. You can even gain more than just the results and of the findings. There are some things where you can still profit even more. That was it. Thank you very much. Questions?
Merci Manuel. Merci Manuel. Questions?
Please in German or English. Thanks.
Thanks a lot. You talked a lot about customers who were very open, with you and who were embracing of the fact getting scanned. Do you have examples of customers, being very defensive, and how does that go?
Defensive in not wanting to do a pen test. So it was more like a compliance and they needed to do it.
Exactly.
No, less, because typically in the end, we will mostly work closely together with the engineers. And they typically, they enjoy seeing how the application can be broken. What we have, of course, is like you have like it's more than on the management side, like the organizational thing where we have then some problems. You see that they need to do it, and they are then in these examples there is the problem of lack of preparation. They don't want to, or they forget to create the accounts, and that's always like. Then when we have some problems then afterwards, because like we as a pen testing company, we typically have like assignments of 1, 2, 3 weeks, and then after an assignment ends, the next one comes up. And if a customer misses the deadline, we cannot just like replace the customer, and we can also not just move the pen test like 2 weeks later, right? So the customer has a problem, and we have a problem. And there the key is to clearly communicate in the beginning and make the expectations clear what we need by when to be able to test. And then most of the time it works, but sometimes you need to do magic and try to, yeah.
Other questions? I have one.
Expected it.
Sorry. Artificial intelligence is coming. Do you use it? Can you use it? Do you see an outlook to use it for automating some kind of your penetration tests?
I think so. So I think we're still at the beginning. We cannot just use ChatGPT and put customer code in there. Of course, we will not do that. I tried it so far with CTF challenges and a bit there, and it really helps to get a quick sight into the application, the context, and get an explanation of something which is very complex. I don't think it's yet there that it does the Iron Man Jarvis thing, hack it for me and everything. That not, but it will be a cat and mouse play in the future, like defensive and offensive capabilities, because it is, at the moment at least, it makes the attacker perspective much easier, because you get typically hacking and And compromising a vulnerability is a complex thing. You need to have a very deep understanding of the technology. And tools like that can help you like understand it and then also guide you on how to attack it. So I think it will make it easier to get into the field, but not yet that it is like fully automated or so.
Thank you very much. Other questions? Last possibility, or then at the apero?
At the apero, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Manuel.
Thank you.